John D. Rockefeller was the richest man in the world. It was a monumental achievement that began in Cleveland. Rockefeller started his business here and lived in the town for more than 50 years. His lasting influence on the community was immense. Yet few recognize the indelible mark John D. left behind, a legacy rooted in the industrial and philanthropic contributions he made to Cleveland, the city Rockefeller called home. John D. Rockefeller was 14 years old when his family moved from New York to Cleveland in 1853. The oldest of 5 children, he was quiet and mature beyond his years. The Rockefeller family moved in with relatives and shared their farmhouse on Whitney Road in Strongsville. Young John's father, William Avery Rockefeller, was seldom home. He was a traveling salesman with a dubious reputation. It was from him that John learned sharp business skills. By contrast, Rockefeller's mother, Eliza, was a devout Baptist who taught John frugality and self-control. Months after arriving, Rockefeller's parents sent John to Cleveland to attend school. He lived at a boarding house on a tree-lined street named Erie, today East 9th. The self-reliant teenager enrolled at Central High School on Euclid Avenue. It was here that he met Laura Spellman, his classmate and future wife. Rockefeller shouldered the responsibility for his mother and younger siblings. His absentee father gave John the money to build a home for them on Cheshire Street, which is now East 19th near Carnegie. John lived here with his family until he married. Rockefeller had a head for numbers and studied accounting at Folsom Business College on Public Square. His first job was as a bookkeeper. 3 years later, he owned his own business in the flats, selling produce and grain. Little did he know he'd be America's first billionaire and forever change Cleveland.
When looked at combined, I think John D. Rockefeller's charitable contributions and his business activity in Cleveland make for the single greatest contribution any one business person has made here in the local area.
In the early 1860s, Cleveland was a bustling town with a population of 40,000. Crude oil had just been discovered in Pennsylvania. The light bulb had yet to be invented, and Clevelanders illuminated their homes with expensive whale oil and candles. A chemist named Samuel Andrews sensed an opportunity and approached his friend Rockefeller with a business proposition. Andrews had invented a better formula to refine kerosene from crude oil. Kerosene was safer and cheaper than whale oil. The market was unlimited. Rockefeller put up the money. In 1864, he and Andrews opened their office in the flats. Rockefeller was in the refining business, and he was ruthless. 7 years later, Rockefeller had strong-armed his competitors and owned 26 of the 29 refineries in the city. He renamed his company Standard Oil to reflect the standard, reliable quality of his kerosene. Cleveland emerged as the oil refining capital of the world. John D. was all of 31.
Bringing of the petroleum refining industry to Cleveland was gigantic for the city. There's no way to think that anyone else or any other circumstances would have brought petroleum refining to Cleveland other than through the agency of John D. Rockefeller.
Standard Oil's refining business was the city's 3rd largest industry behind iron and steel. From 1860 to 1880, it was the fastest growing sector in Cleveland.
And because it was rapidly growing, it affected a number of other sectors. It affected the construction sector, it affected the iron and steel sector, and the whole transportation industry that was associated with all this oil coming in and all the product having to go back out again. So it was one of the engines of growth in Cleveland. It had a tremendous effect on the city.
Rockefeller designed a brilliant operating strategy that is the model for modern business today. He made a quality product, integrated efficiencies, and cut costs that ultimately benefited the customer.
Rockefeller's industry needs barrels. Now, initially, he contracts outside for barrels. So the cooperage industry, the barrel industry grows in Cleveland. Eventually, he absorbs that. He does a wonderful bit of vertical integration where he not only does he make the barrels at Standard Oil, but he owns the forests that produce the wood that come in to make the barrels. It's Rockefeller's genius.
He was hit by antitrust because of his control. Yet when he started, kerosene was 23.5 cents a gallon. And when he got through, it was 7 cents a gallon. All in all, I'd say he was a great man. Now, there may be some people out there that think otherwise. They're entitled to their opinion. But I have nothing but admiration for him.
Rockefeller's success had a ripple effect on Cleveland industries and banks. Industries prospered as they serviced the refining business. Banks thrived as Rockefeller borrowed and deposited large sums of money.
The deposits that Rockefeller makes with local institutions then, of course, get loaned out to other businesses, and economists often refer to this relationship as a multiplier effect. That is, as deposits in one particular area grow, they're available for lending to other businesses, and it tends to sponsor business development outside what became the Standard Oil Trust.
Banks used Rockefeller's profits to finance other ventures that helped expand the city. Ventures like the construction of plants, neighborhoods, railroads, and streetcar lines. Ventures that provided jobs.
And wealth begets jobs, and jobs begets prosperity, and jobs begets people, and people beget a city, and before you know it, you have a thriving metropolis.
John D. Rockefeller was a spark plug in the establishment of several Cleveland companies that still operate today. One started when Rockefeller expanded into iron ore mining in 1890. He turned to a banker friend, D.Z. Norton, to organize his properties. The firm grew to be the Oglebay Norton Company. Another well-known company owes its start to Rockefeller. It began in one of his oil fields in Pennsylvania. Daniel O'Day was in charge of Standard Oil's pipeline construction. He noticed that drillers in search of oil often struck unwanted pockets of natural gas instead and burned it off. O'Day urged Rockefeller to get into the natural gas business. Rockefeller built a pipeline and formed a new company. He named it East Ohio Gas.
I think his greatest gift to Cleveland was in forming a critical component of the city's industrial expansion. Rockefeller's business was not the only factor, but it was a major factor in that development that made Cleveland an industrial powerhouse of the late 19th century.
Rockefeller's extraordinary success reverberated throughout the city, profoundly affecting its economic development. His legacy laid the foundation for Cleveland's future. After the start of his first refinery in 1863, Rockefeller turned his attention to a former classmate, now schoolteacher, Laura Spellman. They were married in a quiet ceremony.
Laura Spellman Rockefeller was his love match right from the beginning. The evidence is quite clear that she wasn't just a person running the household, but was his partner in every aspect of his life.
Rockefeller and his new wife honeymooned for a month. When they returned, they lived next door to the family home on Cheshire. They were pillars of the Euclid Avenue Baptist Church. John was a Sunday school teacher and trustee. Laura raised their first child and championed the temperance movement. The Rockefellers led an austere life.
There's no drinking, no dancing. Those kinds of things are forbidden by the church, and so that's the strict life that he leads, following those kinds of rules.
When Rockefeller's personal wealth increased, he moved his family to an unpretentious mansion on the south side of Euclid Avenue.
But it's the wrong side of Euclid Avenue. The nabobs, if you will, lived on the north side, and the plain old Bobs just lived on the south side. Not that John D. Rockefeller was plain old Bob, but he had a lot of money. He just didn't show it.
Rockefeller was devoted to his 4 children.
He romped with his children. It's another image that we don't have of John D., but we know from both his own accounts and his children's accounts that he loved to do things with his children, particularly on the weekends, walking, ice skating, bicycling.
Rockefeller was equally devoted to his wife. Once, while away on business, he wrote to Laura, "Oh, what I would give for wings to reach you." Rockefeller's family was the most important thing in his life. Rockefeller's softer side was also reflected in his generosity. Nowhere is his Cleveland legacy more apparent than in the money Rockefeller gave to organizations in the city. John D.'s philanthropy began at an early age. As a teenager, Rockefeller kept a record of expenses in a diary he called Ledger A. It reveals that at age 16, he was already donating 10% of his earnings to his Baptist church and to the poor of Cleveland.
The traditional view has been that Rockefeller only gave after he became a wealthy person, and it was out of guilt that he wanted to make sure he got into heaven, so he did all these wonderful philanthropic things. And those are the people we show Ledger A to and say, well, then how do you deal with the beginnings of this giving in 1855?
As Cleveland grew, so did the needs of the churches, institutions, and social service agencies. Rockefeller generously contributed funds to support them. He recorded his donations on index cards. Many of the benefactors on those cards still exist today. Lakeside Hospital, now part of University Hospitals. The Western Reserve Historical Society at University Circle. The Children's Aid Society on Detroit Road near West 104th. The Eliza Jennings Home, also on Detroit Road. The Baptist Home of Northeast Ohio, which is today the Judson Retirement Community. The Friendly Inn Settlement on Unwin Road. Jones Home of Applewood Centers on West 25th Street. And the YMCA, headquartered downtown on Prospect. Rockefeller also targeted many organizations and churches in the African American community. He gave money to Eliza Bryant, the daughter of a former slave. Bryant established the Cleveland Home for Aged Colored People, which is today the Eliza Bryant Village on Wade Park Avenue. Rockefeller gave $100,000 to the Phyllis Wheatley Project, an organization that provided shelter and social services for African American women. And he gave matching funds to buy the buildings for Shiloh Baptist Church on East 55th and Antioch Baptist Church on East 89th and Cedar Avenue. By 1880, Rockefeller was 41 and worth $18 million. John D. received more than 500 requests for money a day. He was overwhelmed.
You can see him on almost every corner being stopped by a minister or a person running a social service agency saying, "Brother John, can't you help us out?"
Rockefeller gave money to more than 178 Cleveland institutions. The biggest donations went to his Euclid Avenue Baptist Church, Alta Settlement House on Mayfield Road, and what is today Case Western Reserve University. The single largest donation was given to the parks of Cleveland. Rockefeller bestowed 270 acres of land that connected University Circle to Lake Erie. The city named the land Rockefeller Park in his honor. John D.'s land donation was worth $866,000 in 1896. Today, that amount would be equivalent to $13 million. The stress of giving away his money thrust Rockefeller on the verge of a nervous breakdown. He sat down and designed an efficient business plan for the orderly distribution of his wealth.
Rockefeller said, let's have an organized staff, a board of trustees, approach this from a scientific standpoint, and really go about making a difference and trying to measure impact, the word we would use in today's terms.
Frederick Goff, a Standard Oil legal advisor, used the principles he learned from Rockefeller to help create the Cleveland Foundation.
I think there's no question that he was influenced by Mr. Rockefeller's foundation, which did not place restrictions on how the money would be used. Didn't try and encouraged it that it would be unrestricted. It would have a group of very influential trustees and staff who would decide what was the greatest need. That is also the essence of the Cleveland Foundation.
Rockefeller's philanthropic system is the model for today's grant-making foundations. His generosity, which began long before he became rich, remains Rockefeller's most enduring legacy. Part of Rockefeller's legacy is that he made millionaires out of many of his early Cleveland partners. Some were already affluent, but those who took Standard Oil stock in lieu of cash became rich beyond imagination.
In business, his greatest effect was promoting the accumulation of capital by quite a number of people who then reinvested that money or who gave the money philanthropically to the city.
Those who made fortunes with Rockefeller in turn left behind their own legacies. People like Stephen Harkness, one of Rockefeller's founding partners who built the arcade in 1888. Rockefeller was a major investor. Colonel Oliver Payne merged his refinery with Rockefeller's in 1872. Colonel Payne left behind a fortune, some of which was inherited by his nieces, Elizabeth Blossom and Frances Payne Bolton. Frances later donated funds to establish the Frances Payne Bolton School of Nursing at Case Western Reserve University. John Huntington grew rich from a Standard Oil merger. In later years, his generous gift helped build the Cleveland Museum of Art. Huntington's property in Bay Village was acquired in 1920 and now serves as a public park and beach. Lewis H. Severance was an early treasurer of Standard Oil. He amassed great wealth from his stock and bequeathed large sums to local institutions. His son, John L. Severance, joined Standard Oil before founding several other companies. His gifts to Cleveland included $2.5 million to build Severance Hall in memory of his wife. Rockefeller's contribution to the wealth of others did not go unnoticed. Adela Prentice Hughes, founder of the Cleveland Orchestra, once remarked that the endowments of the orchestra and Severance Hall were made possible by the Standard Oil fortunes, inherited by the Severances, Blossoms, and Boltons.
There's this whole process of economic engendering, really, that goes on that causes the community as a whole to benefit from wealth creation in one sector as it spills over into wealth in other sectors.
Standard Oil millionaires amplified John D.'s legacy with their own great industrial and philanthropic contributions to Cleveland. John D. Rockefeller was Cleveland's richest citizen and set the standard. By 1883, the Cleveland population was almost 200,000, and Standard Oil supplied most of the world's kerosene. The company was a huge monopoly that required enormous capital. Rockefeller moved to New York. Simply put, he needed money, and lots of it.
There was only one city in the country that had the financial institutions to support that and to assist him in managing it, and that was New York City. He had to be able to call up financiers and say, you know, I need $2 million tomorrow to do something. And Cleveland was no longer able to provide that kind of support for him.
Although a legal resident of New York, Rockefeller maintained a strong Cleveland presence. Even in their later years, he and his wife returned every summer to their Forest Hill estate. The 50-room mansion was 4 miles east of the Rockefeller home on Euclid Avenue and spread from East Cleveland into Cleveland Heights. Rockefeller found refuge in the secluded 700 acres of rolling hills. He often entertained family and friends. His hobby was landscaping. His passion was golf. Rockefeller built a 9-hole course on the grounds and played every day. It was here, at Forest Hill in 1905, that 400 of Cleveland's prominent businessmen gathered to support Rockefeller after his nemesis, Ida Tarbell, wrote a scathing national expose about Standard Oil. The article painted Rockefeller as despicable.
Her remarks enraged the community, and With their enragement came a meeting, and the meeting generated a decision to go to Rockefeller's home and to tell him that he was an important citizen to this community.
Andrew Squire, a leading attorney and founder of Squire, Sanders and Dempsey law firm, delivered the first of many speeches.
They needed to assure him that they didn't care what others said about John D. Rockefeller. They knew enough of John D. Rockefeller and what he had done for this community and his importance to the business of this community, to the economic development of this community. This city was a thriving metropolis, and one of the reasons was because of John D. Rockefeller.
In October of 1913, Rockefeller's wife was ill and was unable to travel from Forest Hill to their legal residence in New York. Rockefeller remained by her side. John Fackler, a Cuyahoga County tax commissioner, declared that because Rockefeller stayed beyond the February tax cutoff date, he was liable for a $1.5 million personal property tax. Rockefeller was incensed and sued. When Laura recovered, they returned to New York and remained there while Rockefeller's lawyers fought his case. Laura Rockefeller died in 1915. Facing legal action if he returned, Rockefeller buried his wife in New York. When the legal battle was won, Rockefeller brought Laura's body to Lakeview Cemetery. Shortly after, fire destroyed his beloved home at Forest Hill. Rockefeller never returned to Cleveland.
The question is, why doesn't he come back? Is he absolutely upset with everything in Cuyahoga County and Cleveland? Does he have anything to come back to? Perhaps not, because the house is gone, his wife is gone. It's a different life for him. He did not cease to support things in Cleveland after that, and the money still came to Cleveland. It's a complex issue.
Most people remember Rockefeller as the man who handed out dimes, but his philanthropic contribution to the city is legendary. Rockefeller and his son John D. Jr. gave nearly $6 million to organizations in Cleveland, an untold fortune in today's dollars. Rockefeller spent more than 60 years in Cleveland, but little physical evidence remains. Long gone is the farmhouse on Whitney Road in Strongsville where the family first lived. The nearby Rockefeller estate marks its existence. Gone is Rockefeller's mansion on what was once called Millionaire's Row. A commercial building now occupies the site at the corner of East 40th and Euclid. Gone, too, is his sprawling 700-acre Forest Hill estate. Most of the property was sold to developers who built 1,200 neighborhood homes. In 1938, the Rockefeller family donated the remaining 235 acres of Forest Hill estate to East Cleveland and Cleveland Heights. Today, Forest Hill Park is an urban oasis of beauty and recreation for both communities who continue to enjoy the grounds that Rockefeller loved.
We don't find the Rockefeller name plastered all over Cleveland, and his own strategy was not to associate his name with things, if possible, and the family continued that for many years.
Only a handful of Cleveland landmarks bear Rockefeller's name. The Heights Rockefeller Building on Mayfield and Lee, built by his son in 1930. The Rockefeller Physics Lab at Case Western Reserve University, erected with John D.'s donation. Rockefeller Park, which winds along Martin Luther King Boulevard. And the Rockefeller Greenhouse on the park property. Rockefeller Avenue, the street that borders the site of his first refinery. Originally a section of Broadway, it was renamed in his honor during Cleveland's bicentennial. And the Rockefeller Building on Superior and West 6th in downtown Cleveland. Two sites quietly mark the beginning and end of Rockefeller's odyssey to greatness. A plaque on Rockefeller Road. It commemorates the spot where Rockefeller built his first refinery more than 135 years ago. And the BP building on Public Square, formerly the Sohio building. Sohio, Standard Oil's descendant, erected the structure in the early 1980s. It stands as a testament to Rockefeller's legacy. Coincidentally, the building sits on the site of his first Standard Oil office. In 1937, Rockefeller died a quiet, peaceful death at age 97. His body was returned to Cleveland, the city he called home. Rockefeller was buried at Lakeview Cemetery next to his wife, Laura. John D. Rockefeller rests among the many he knew in life, millionaires who made their fortunes from Standard Oil, prominent civic and business leaders who once came to honor him.
No, it would be very hard to say what this town would have been like without him. I can say this, there would have been a lot of minuses here instead of the pluses, and people don't appreciate that fact.
John D. Rockefeller, a name synonymous with wealth and philanthropy. Today, a 65-foot obelisk towers above the Titan's grave. It stands as a reminder of the man who towered above all others. Though time has faded his extraordinary impact, time will never erase his greatness. John D. Rockefeller's unparalleled legacy will forever be a story that started and ended in Cleveland.